Here we are for another live episode of Talking Sports with the Legend. Tonight's guest is Jason Yost. He is a soccer referee. Take it away, Steve.
Where were you born? Where were you born?
Hey, Steve. I was born in the Fishtown section of Philadelphia.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Central High School here in Philadelphia.
What do you do for a job besides reffing?
I'm actually what's called a learning design specialist. So I work in the training department for a health insurance company. So I create all the training material for all the employees in the company, and sometimes actually get to deliver the training, whether it's here in our Philadelphia office or sometimes in our Bloomington, Minnesota office.
Where did you go to college? Where did you go to college? Where did you go to college? Where did you go to college?
Where'd you go to college?
I actually did not go to college. I started working right out of high school and got right into the workforce.
When did you start reffing?
Actually, I started reffing back in 1988 when I was a junior in high school. So I've been reffing for almost 30 years. Took a little bit of time off for a couple years and then got back into it.
What level are you up to?
So the highest level I've done so far is Division II in college. Although I've done some additional skill level because I've had an opportunity to do the Philadelphia Unity Cup for a number of years, and actually had a chance to do the final last year between Team USA and Team Liberia. So I think that's definitely a high level of soccer. But from a college perspective, I've done up to Division II.
Cool. How do you deal with parents and fans who act up during the games?
That's a great question. So the good thing for my situation is I played the game, I've coached the game, and so that definitely helps in controlling the environment. Normally, I try to have no rabbit ears and kind of let it go as much as I can, as long as it's not impacting the game and changing the players' behavior. I kind of look at it as once it kind of has an impact on what's going on to the field or even with the coaches, then it's a different approach and need to kind of step in. But you kind of let the parents, and even the coaches, respect them to a degree. Hopefully they'll realize that you're respecting them and they'll kind of change their approach. But initially they're kind of there to hopefully see their kids, have a good time and, and move forward in a career in the game. So I try to keep as much civilness as I can.
How early do you have to get to the field?
So it depends on the game that we're doing. Normally for a college game, if it's a weekend game, they like to see us there an hour before the game. If it's during the week, usually 45 minutes. If it's a youth game, it varies because a lot of times there's a short availability of referees. So sometimes we're running from one field to another. So sometimes we're getting there 10, 15 minutes before a game. I mean, we like to try to be there 30 minutes before a game. Same thing with high school games. But it really depends on, if we're leaving one field and going to another, we try to get there as quick as we can.
How far have you traveled for a game?
I would say probably my furthest travel is when I had an opportunity to do the 2013 state final for the boys AAA in Hershey. So I traveled up to 2 hours for a game. I actually lived in Georgia for a couple years. So the fields aren't like in Philadelphia where there's a number of fields around the corner. So most of the time when I was doing games down in Georgia and Florida, sometimes you'd have to travel 45 minutes to an hour, and that was normal rather than, going to Fishtown or going to Vogue or even going to Philly Soccer and Lighthouse. All the fields weren't necessarily close.
Do you change the way that you ref a game at the end of the game on overtime?
I think we definitely take a different mental approach because when we're in overtime, I think one mistake has a bigger opportunity to impact the game. So I would say I try not to change my style because the players are getting used to how I'm going to call a game during regulation. But to say that we shouldn't be probably more focused during overtime, or recognize that a mistake can be magnified in overtime, we need to be aware of that. So I try not to, but I'm sure over the 30 years that I've officiated, maybe a situation happened right near the end of the game that I have to call it tighter in overtime, so nothing happens.
What was the most important game that you ever refed?
Great question. So I think it's kind of a tie between the game I mentioned earlier, where the Philadelphia Unity Cup final last year that was in town, Energy Field, was definitely one of them. And then, like I said, the state final that I did in 2013 between Upper St. Clair in the Pittsburgh area and Conestoga Valley in the District 3 Harrisburg area were probably my two biggest games that I've done.
Could you explain the Unity Cup to Stephen and all the people out there?
Yep. So we're going into approximately the fourth year where the city of Philadelphia sponsors a World Cup style soccer tournament that typically occurs, starts the beginning of August and goes to close to the end of October. And they play a round robin tournament among different countries. My understanding is that there is certain eligibility requirement for each team. They must have at least 15 members of their team from that ethnicity. So if we had a team from Germany, they would need to have at least 15 people that have that ethnicity in their background. And then they could actually bring in additional 7 or 8 players on their team to fill out the roster. So it's actually a really good tournament. It gets a lot of nationalities together. And there's a lot of good soccer that's played in that tournament. You have a lot of players that play from the Junior Lone Star, Westchester United, VE, Phoenix, a lot of great soccer players, and a lot of different styles of soccer, which you could really appreciate in person. And the best part is the admission is absolutely free, and the games are on, many fields in the city of Philadelphia. So it's a great tournament and great opportunity.
Thank you.
Do you ref with the same people every game?
Not every game, but again, when you've been officiating for as long as I have, it kind of runs out of people who I have not officiated with. There are different groups of officials that I work with on a college level, since not everyone's a college soccer official. Same thing with high school. Unfortunately, not everyone can be available since a lot of the games are played on a weekday. So, but the tendency is the assigners really like to put people together that have worked together a lot. It just makes the game a lot more effective and efficient. So for me, it's very rare that I work with someone who I've not worked with before.
Do you have different classes in refereeing? Like, do you have like Class A, Class B license, or do you just get the original license and then work your way up?
So actually it works depending on the league. So for example, with college, there's certainly different levels. Usually your certification is through an acronym called NYSOA. However, once you have that license, you technically can ref Division I all the way through junior college. There are certain clinics that you want to attend, so and fitness level tests that you need to follow. So for college, yes. For high school, there is no tier level or different levels that an official is. Once you are a National Federation of High School official, you can really do any game. It just depends on who the assigner is and if they want to give you that game for your ability. For USSF, which is a lot of our youth soccer, pro-am amateur soccer, there are different levels. Right now, the beginning level is grassroots, where you can do up to like under 19. Once you start getting into the amateurs, then you start moving into different grades, as we call it, for USSF. So yes, there are different levels in most leagues of soccer. They take a look at your fitness, your ability, your knowledge of the rules of the game, as well as how many years of experience you have. You can move up to different levels. So it's very similar to a lot of the other countries in the world, where you ultimately, many people want to build up to, do FIFA games where that's the highest level. But again, there definitely are different levels of certification.
Did you play soccer yourself, Jason?
I did, yep. I actually started when I was around 3 or 4 years old. I played through Pat Kane's organization, originally of Hetzel's. So we started indoors at Penn Treaty School. I played for a number of different organizations through my career. Did play in high school, but I played at Fishtown, Hetzel's back in the day. I actually, as I got a little older, moved around a little bit and played at Port Richmond Athletic Association for a little while, and then ultimately wound up finishing my club career with Vogue and then Irish American once I hit that under 18, under 19. And then I actually had an opportunity when I was in my junior year going into senior year. I had an opportunity to play over in Europe for a month and played in a couple of youth tournaments in Gothenburg, Sweden, Amsterdam, Netherlands, and a place called Uring, Denmark. So I actually did have a lot of opportunity to play. But once I started reffing, I kind of just really liked something about having a different aspect and impact on the game. So, yep, I definitely played all the way up until right around 20 years old.
That's awesome. What year did you graduate Central?
So I graduated, I'm from the 249th graduating class, which was 1990.
1990, okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
You're welcome.
Do you like doing the middle or the side better?
Believe it or not, it depends on the game sometimes. I certainly, if it's a real challenge and physical game, I like to do the middle. I think I have a better impact on the game. But I do like to do assistant referee positions almost as much because, one, you actually, I think, work harder and run more when you're an assistant referee. There's a lot of things that you have to take a look at, so your brain has to be pretty sharp as well. But if my first priority or preference is definitely doing the middle because I like to interact with the players, and it's very difficult to do that when you're an assistant referee. When you're the referee, you really can control the game and have a lot of camaraderie with the players, and that's one thing I really like about the game.
I got one more question. Who's your favorite person or people to referee?
So I really enjoy working with Joe Garner. I think a lot of people know Joe. He's old school referee, but I think it's very effective in today's game. One of the other referees who I really enjoyed refereeing with is Joe Rettenauer. I learned a lot from both of them. Different things that I could pick up that I think make my game that I call a lot better. So those are two of the referees that have an influence on me. But there's a lot. I mean, Steve, you know Hector, very well.
Yeah.
It's fun to work with Ed Decker, Johnny Lynch. So pretty much a lot of the regulars in, the Philadelphia scene. I really enjoy. It's kind of like a brotherhood, just like teammates get to see each other. When we're officials, we have a brotherhood, and that includes all of our officials, male, female. We really just enjoy being together.
All right, that's it. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks for having me, and everybody have a great night.
Mm-hmm.